on to episode 29. Hot topic: was Jesus a prophet? The destruction of the second temple is the key in focus here. So, Rabbi, I've been hearing over the past few years how I even heard there's stories in the Talmud that are misquoted, of course, or misused, that will prove that Jesus is was the Messiah, and that all this stuff, and that he prophesied the destruction of the second temple. So did he really prophesy it? Did he? Again, I understand there's a lot of things, and I'm going to have you tell us all about it, because there's so many factors involved that some of the listeners have never heard of, and this is just fascinating. So I believed for a long time that yes, he did. He said 3 days. And the whole, he really went into all the detail. And then later on, I found out there were some issues, and that's why we're going to talk to you about it, Rabbi. What issues do we take with this whole concept?
So first, let me present the Christian argument. I don't know. In my experience, not that many Christians argue this, because I think it's fairly transparent, and it's such an unsatisfying proof. I think that I don't hear it this much. Maybe people are asking a lot, and it just doesn't come across my desk, but a lot comes across my desk. I got more stuff coming across my desk than the Pope. But that said, over here, I hear from more Christians every day than the Pope. In fact, the Pope calls me every day and asks me what's going on. So let me just okay. So according to according to most Christians, Jesus was crucified somewhere around the year 30, I guess, right? About 30. Let's just say 30, okay? Works nice round number. And we know the second temple was destroyed in the year 70. And guess what? It's unbelievable. If we go to the book of, as an example, we find this in Matthew chapter 24, verse 1, that Jesus says that, as he said to him, "Truly I say unto you, that not one stone will be left on top of another, because the whole Beis Hamikdash, the whole temple, will be destroyed." Now, some people are, go, well, actually it didn't happen, because if you look at the entire temple superstructure, we have quite a few stones that are on top of each other, and they remain there to this day. But I'm going to ignore that.
I never heard that one. That was good, though.
That's why you hire me. That's why I get the big bucks. That's why, I have the same contract as A-Rod, because I come up with this stuff. So as it turns out, and not only that, you'll say, well, that was the superstructure of Herod. It wasn't Herod. But we can even go. I could take you into when I'll be doing the tour. I'll show you in the Temple Mount. They have even the stones of Nehemiah's wall, which is further inside the Temple Mount, and it's intact at all, and I'll show you exactly where it is. So actually, as it turns out, that didn't happen. The stones are still there, one on top of another, and I'll send you the picture. Okay, so, but what I want to do is, I want to set that aside, because actually, as compelling as that might be, the real answer to this question is much more obvious, because the real answer is the following. Let's say we're in 2015, right? I'll say to you, my great-great-grandfather was a prophet, and back in the year 1900, he predicted that the Americans in the 1960s and early 70s, and not only that, I'll do better than him. It was under the Johnson and Nixon administration. that the United States will be drawn into a war in Southeast Asia and Vietnam, and 58,000 American soldiers would die. I'll tell you that. And I'll write that book today. I'll write it now. And I'll say to you, here, my great-great-grandfather obviously was a prophet because he predicted these things. I'm writing this book. And I have no book written by my great-great-grandfather. I have the book now written in the year 2015. Well, the Vietnam War has been over for many, many years now. So will anybody be impressed by such a screed? No, I'll make myself into a laughingstock. Why? Because I am writing this book after the fact, and therefore I know about the Vietnam War. I know about the North Vietnamese. I know about the sacrifices that America made during this war in Southeast Asia. Actually, Vietnam isn't far away from Indonesia. And I know that, and therefore I can write anything I want to. That I can write that my great-great-grandfather prophesied about Vietnam. but it's after the fact. So the answer is that the book of Matthew is written after the fact. Whoever wrote the book of Matthew, and I know this comes as a big surprise to some of our listeners, but as it turns out, we don't know who the book of Matthew, who wrote it. It is an anonymous document. The ascription to all the Gospels is a Catholic tradition, so we really have no idea who wrote it. If someone says they know, either a Catholic could say, look, I believe in the Catholic traditions, but it's all nonsensical. We don't know who wrote Matthew, okay? But it's not important, but the key point is that, of course, whoever wrote the book of Matthew, and all the scribes who were rewriting Matthew and so on and so forth, they wrote this after the event. So they knew about the destruction of the temple, and then they simply inserted it into the mouth of Jesus, and they had Jesus predicting something that already happened already. So if I would tell you, you know what? You don't know who my great-great-grandmother was. My great-great-grandmother, her sister-in-law, was a big prophet, and she prophesied that on a Tuesday morning, on a horrible Tuesday morning, on September 11th, 2001, Islamic fundamentalists would crash their planes into the World Trade Centers, and thousands of people would be, 3,000 American citizens would be, 3,000 Americans, innocent people would be killed, right? Let's say, and not only that, one plane took off from Boston, one plane took off from Newark, and so would you be impressed with such a thing? You'll say, can I see the book that she wrote back in the year 1875? That would be impressive. I said, no, I can't really do that. This is the book. It's now in the year 2015, and I'm telling you that she predicted in the year 1880, 9/11. So I'll become a laughingstock of the world and say, of course, after the fact, I can say my great-great-grandmother wrote anything she wanted to. And that's exactly what we find in the book of Matthew. We find the book of Matthew is the author lived after the fact, and the book of Matthew was edited, and the book of Mark was edited, which means the book of Mark, the whole ending of the book of Mark, the last 12 verses were added in. Don't ask what was added in. So therefore, after the fact, they can write that Jesus said that the temple would be destroyed. So what I want to do is, all right, so in fact we have the stones one on top of the other. I don't want to belabor that point. What I do want to do is say it's a preposterous argument. It sounds impressive only to people who don't know. But it's like, and I'm not trying to be, to the Christian watching this, if you're insulted, I don't mean insulted, but it's like going to Vegas. I mean, I've watched as a kid like a magician on TV, right? And and they saw a lady in half. We've all seen this, right? And then they separate the two, and the feet are wagging here, and the head's over here, and we go, wow, how did he do that, right? And then there are some shows that actually give away how it's done, right? Do you ever see those shows that say, this is how they do it? And then when you watch how they actually did it, you go, wow, I was so stupid. How did they, how did I miss it? Right? Didn't it happen 1,000 times that you're a kid and you watch? So in the old days, magicians didn't give away their tricks. I remember as a little boy, they had the Ed Sullivan Show, and they would have magicians on who would do these things, all these crazy, and I'll go, wow, how did he do that? I would sit there, my brains would, but so in the old days, there was sort of a thing that magicians did where they did not give away their secrets. But what happened is later on it became in vogue to actually say how it was done. And if you ever watch the show of how it's done, right? How does Blaine, David Blaine, I think his name is, he can float up in the air. So it looks very impressive, but when they show you what he actually does, you go, boy, that was so stupid. That was dumb. That's exactly this. So this is again, I don't mean, this is a serious business because people really believe this, people really have their faith in it, they tie their faith in it, but in reality, it's no different. What you have is, after the fact, I could say, my sister-in-law, predicted, 20 years ago that Bernie Madoff would have the biggest what is it, Ponzi scam in stock market history, because I'm writing it now. It's after the fact. So my sister-in-law, what am I going to call my sister-in-law, a prophet? People will laugh my head off. That's what we find the gospel. This is not complicated. The books are written after the fact.
Now I do have a question on the stones. The implication seems to be that just means that there won't be any stones connected to one another, stacked like they were in the building. So are you saying that now that there are still pieces that are still connected, like even if it's
what, the whole Western Wall is standing on top of another, and in the Temple Mount.
No kidding.
Oh, no kidding. What are you living in a living? Well, where are you living?
I just never thought about it. Never put two and two together.
Did you ever think about getting the internet and looking at pictures? Yes, they have. It's only stones on top of another, but the stones are the largest stones ever built ever used in construction in human history. And not only that, what's interesting is, and I'm going to show it on tour, I'll be doing a number of tours in the fall, is that the Romans were so angry in the year 70 when they destroyed Yerushalayim. It was a great tragedy. And they were so angry for 3 years, from 66 all the way to 70. For 3.5 years, they fought the Jews. And when they finally breached the walls of Yerushalayim, it was really a Holocaust. It was nothing short of that. And I use that word carefully. And they wanted to destroy the temple. And when they came to the walls, there's a prophecy. The Medrash says, it's based on a verse in Shir HaShirim, but I say it is a prophecy in the Medrash that the Western Wall will never be destroyed. Never. And that the Shekhinah, that the presence of God, will never depart from it. Never. It will be there forever. That's what it says in the Jewish tradition. And here we are. And it's written, 1,800 years later. That's prophecy. That's prophecy, my friends. When it says in the book of Songs, I will stand behind the wall, and we have a medrash that's written, 1,800 years ago, they couldn't know what was going to happen. But that, my friends, is prophecy. And they said, it means that the Shekhinah will never leave this wall, and it will never be destroyed. Now, that is pretty good. Why? Because there would be good reason for people to try to destroy that Western Wall. The Arabs would have loved to destroy the Western Wall, so there'd be no vestige for them to scream that there was never a temple in Jerusalem. That means their incentive was to really destroy the Western Wall. They couldn't. Why? That's prophecy, my friends. Because here we are today, and that wall stands there waiting for the redemption. That's prophecy. And that's in the Medrash. And you can go into a museum and find the Medrash written 500 years ago and 1,000 years ago in the ancient manuscript, and it's there. That is prophecy. How do they possibly know that? And there it stands over there. That's real prophecy. And it's not only prophecy, it's unlikely. That means there's a prediction in the Medrash that the Western Wall, which is the outer wall of the superstructure of the Beis HaMikdash, of the temple, it's the outer wall that held the whole mountain together, and on that is the Temple Mount. There was a million reasons why people would want to destroy that, to eradicate any memory that the Jews were there. You know what happened when the Romans came to destroy the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, in the year 70? The wall beat them. I'm not kidding. Those who come with me on a tour, I'll show you that the little stones, when I say little, I don't mean little, but they're big. But the Romans were so angry, they pushed on in the southern part of the wall, the southwestern part of the wall, they actually pushed giant stones over. And believe me, it was no trick, because those stones weigh tons. And I'll show it to you with your eyes. You'll see what they did. But what happened was the rest of the stones was so huge that the stones defeated the Romans. The prophecy of the Medrash defeated Rome, defeated Edom. And you're going to see with your eyes, they could not destroy the great stones of the Western Wall. And that, my friends, is prophecy. That, my friends, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu kept it. And here we are returned to the land of Israel. Hashem is the one who keeps his promise. Hashem is the one who's trustworthy. He is our rock. He is our Redeemer. It is to him every tongue will praise. It is to him that every knee will bow. And it is the promises in the Medrash, that's prophecy. Not in the book like the book of Matthew, written after the fact, saying that Jesus in 30 said this. You can write anything he wants to. So I'm going to write a book about Jesus and say that Jesus predicted predicted that Barack Obama made a brilliant agreement with the Iranians. I can do that. By the way, there's prophecy. When Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, that's Milchemes Gog uMagog, that's the end time war. Ezekiel says who would lead the war against Jerusalem. You know what it says? Who? It says it would be Persia. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the map, but Persia does not share a boundary with the land of Israel. It doesn't. It's not only not close, it's 1,000 kilometers away. That's a huge distance. And in the ancient world, forget about it. It was, and what do the Persians have to do? They're not Yishmaelim, they're not Arabs. So what are they? So it is so improbable. That is the nature of prophecy, my friends. I mean, let alone the fact that in the first century, everybody was predicting. I mean, it looked really bad. It was very likely the Beis HaMikdash was going to be destroyed because the Romans were threatening it. They were coming in. They were massacring and so on and so forth. So if I said to you, I have a prophecy. Tomorrow, Barack Hussein Obama is going to get on television, and he is going to say that the agreement, the nuclear agreement that was put together by the great luminaries of the 5+1, the powers, is good for Israel. So, if it happened, would you be impressed? I'll say no, because that's logical. He's been doing the same thing every day. But let's say I would tell you this. No, I'd say next week, Barack Obama is going to get on national television and he's going to say, you remember that Iran nuclear deal that was forged in Geneva? I decided it's a bad idea and we don't support it. And I'm going to tell you why I don't support it, and that is I decided that I'm going to become a Lubavitcher. Okay? I'm joining Chabad. And Michelle and myself, we're converting to Judaism, and we're going to become Hasidim. All right? Now, if I said that today, and this could be established, it's today, and that happened next week, you'd go, it's very unlikely that I could have extrapolated anything from the past and predicted something like that, and you go, I think, I think I'm not losing my religion right now. That means it would be very obvious, because so also do understand that the first century was a time when people knew things were coming to an end. We have a prediction by Daniel 9 that the temple was going to be destroyed. But the point is, the books are written after the fact, and they were edited over and over after the fact. You know, the Christian Bible has 400,000 variants. They change it nonstop. And it has 400,000 variants in the Greek manuscripts alone. There are a little bit less than 6,000 Greek manuscripts of the Christian Bible with how many words are there in the whole Christian Bible? How many words are there? 138,162 words. That means there's more than twice as many variances as there. So, well, come on, this is all nonsense. It's written after the fact, so they can have Jesus say anything he wants to. that's the answer.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ועת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה